Hi, everyone. So, if you are the parent of a tween or a teen, welcome to this episode. You are going to get a lot out of it. I'm going to share here probably the most common advice that I give to most of the clients and my families that I work with who have tweens or teens. And just for clarity, I think of tweens as anywhere between 9 and 12. And again, the advice that I'm going to give today can be applicable to a lot of different ages, but that's specifically what I'm looking at. And also teens, which I think of as like 13 to 16, 17. Then we start obviously to focus more on young adults. So I posted a video recently on social media and it performed very well and it got a lot of engagement and a lot of people had questions. And this is sort of what made me think about putting a lot of the information on a podcast episode because there's a lot to unpack. And so I always try to remind people who follow me on social, like I can only give general information really in a 3-minute video or in a 2-minute video. And in some instances, even if I do a 4-minute video, it's like I can't completely unpack every single thing I would do. So all the questions that I get usually in the comments are really fair and reasonable. It's just really hard to get in there and like give specific answers to every single person. So what I decided to do was like I scanned as many as I could, and then I thought, let me do a podcast episode where I can come in here and give a little bit more clarity or follow up to the information I provided in that video. So if you didn't see the video on social media, I'll link it in the show notes, but essentially what I say is this, that what starts to happen with our older kids is that when they engage in a behavior like, let's say, emotional dysregulation, so arguing with you, fighting with you, maybe having what looks like a tantrum, even though it seems like they're too old, or really fighting back on so many things and not listening and not cooperating, what tends to happen is parents will usually, as kids get older, our expectations go up and our patience goes down because we subscribe to the story that they're old enough to know better. They're old enough to do better. And when we subscribe to that story and believe that story, whatever our kids do from that point on feels deliberate and purposeful and like they chose to do it. It feels very intentional. And when we agree with that, like when we tell ourselves that, yep, they should know better, and clearly they are choosing to do the wrong thing, they're choosing to be rude and disrespectful, they're choosing all of these things, that's it. We have a lot less patience in the way that we're responding. Now, I'm going to asterisk this and say I do not believe in sort of permissive, passive parenting, because it might sound like I'm saying like, oh, they can't control it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that even if they can, or let's just argue and say for a second, they are old enough to know better. The point is, when you think that way, you're not addressing the problem at hand and you're stuck in your story and you're mad at them right away and it just becomes personal. So whether they should know better or not doesn't really matter. They're doing it. Right? So they are being rude. They are having big emotional responses every time you tell them they can't have something, or when it's time to put something away that they really like, or transition from a highly preferred activity like being on their electronics to a very non-preferred activity like getting ready for bed. So, or doing homework, right? That's another one that comes up a lot. So ultimately, it isn't about thinking to yourself, you know what, they should know better, or this should have been done by now. Developmentally speaking, they should be past this, right? Like, I'm not saying that's not an important thing to know, especially if we're in the process of like maybe getting a professional evaluation done and there's a medical team looking at possible different diagnoses, or a psychologist is working with you. It's an important question to answer in that context, but I'm talking the day-to-day parenting conundrums that come up. And if we keep telling ourselves, you know, I can't believe it, I've been dealing with this kid for so long and they are way too old to be doing this still, and we kind of go in with our big, bold response because that's what we're telling ourselves, it usually yields an outcome that doesn't lead to more connection. It doesn't foster cooperation. And you probably already know this. They fight with you more, right? It's almost like they're like, I'm in, I got them. And so now that argument continues to escalate. It suddenly turns into something that it was never about in the first place. And so I think the first place I would tell you to start is look at how often are you telling yourself they're just too old, they should know better. Because when we believe that, we will naturally take whatever they're doing to heart, we'll take it personally, and we escalate with them. We do what I call energy matching. We start to get mad when they get mad. We fight every fight with them. And so nobody's really there to anchor. And that's how we have to really see ourselves as the parent. We are their anchor. So what do we do? How do we set a boundary? How do we stay calm? How do we move through it? How do we set reasonable expectations and have the expectation that they can do it? And that's all fair and that's reasonable. So the first thing I would want you to think about is, and I believe I said this in the video, is you want to set your boundary. You want to be kind and clear, and you don't want to engage in all the follow up after that. So let's say, I'll just use the iPad for an example. I think I've said this so many times on other podcasts, but let's say you're saying to them, hey, you've got to turn your iPad off, and we know they don't like this, and we know they don't like the transition, or they don't like doing homework, or whatever it is that's after the iPad. And you say to them, you need to, and they say, God, no, I hate it. You're always bugging me. You're the worst. You're the worst mom, whatever, right? And now when that's the response, we are really ignited, right? We activate and we're like, excuse me. And we start to really almost sound identical to them. Who do you think you're talking to? You don't get to talk to me that way, blah, 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 blah. And then we're going on and on. Now right, their fight response kicks in and they're going to do the same thing back. And so this keeps ping ponging back and forth. And now all of a sudden, if we just kind of pull that camera lens out or zoom that camera lens out, what we really need is them to just put the iPad away. That's the issue. They can't tolerate the frustration that comes when you are taking away something they like. That's hard for a lot of people. I know adults who struggle with this. So instead of taking the bait, as I call it, give the boundary, assign an action with the boundary. Hey, you're going to have to put the iPad away. If you can, I'll just take it. Right? That's the action. They're not going to be happy. Don't make that expectation. We can't tell them how to feel. That's not our job too, by the way. We don't have to make them happy. That's not real. That's not realistic. It's not even a fair thing to expect. I'm not always happy. I don't know anybody who is. We have to be able to feel everything, the full sort of spectrum of emotions. So now they start to argue with you and say things to you, and they're getting more intense. No one can argue with someone else who is not arguing back. So this is where I would tell you, stop. And the only thing I would say to them is, I will talk to you when you're calm. And then because they're so smart, they're going to say something like, you're ignoring me. That's so mean. You're not even listening to me. You don't even care. Look at you. Right? Because they're really smart. And they're, again, trying to get the outcome that they want. They're not in a rational state of mind. And so what we do is we hear that, and then we get tempted to keep explaining. So we go back and we say something like, listen, I already told you, you can't be on that iPad any longer, and you have to get your homework done, and you know that this is a have to, and why do you argue with me every single night? This is the same thing, like, right? And it's like we can just rinse and repeat every evening. This probably happens. And you grow frustrated because you're like, gosh, I'm explaining, I'm doing all these things, I'm doing it the way I'm supposed to be doing it. Why are they still doing this? And the truth is in that moment, they're just looking to see, why won't you change the outcome? And so when they see we set that really clear boundary and we're also not going to keep arguing with them, they don't like it. Because usually in a lengthier argument, they might have been able to affect change. Maybe not every time, but maybe some of the times you were like, fine, you can have it. Fine, 2 more minutes. Fine, last time, don't ask me again, right? Those are things we do when we kind of get to the point where our back is against the wall. And so we have to change that pattern. And what I tell a lot of my clients is, our kids won't change until we change. They follow our lead. So if we get upset and escalated and activated and yell and all these things, so will they, right? This is like a very, very simple formula. If we can't manage what's coming up for us, they will also be unable to manage what's coming up for them. So what's important to know is to recognize in that moment, they are continuing a pattern that has value for them. It's our job to disrupt that pattern. So from now on, we're just going to say, I know you're upset, but you're not having the iPad. It's not a choice right now. And then they're going to say whatever they want to say. You're not going to engage. And a lot of people say to me, what if they follow me? That's fine. Don't answer them. Just don't answer them. That's all you really need to do. You just need to say, I'll talk to you when you're calm. When you calm down and you've had a full minute of really just getting back into your body and calming down, I'll talk to you. And if that makes them really angry, I wouldn't even say that, because they already know. They already know. And then once they calm down, that's when I would say to them, hey, I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard when I have to put certain rules in place. It's gonna hurt sometimes. And that's not my hope. That's not what I want. But it's also my job to keep you safe, to help you develop in a really healthy way. And sometimes that just means rules that we don't love. I went through it. You're going through it. I get it. I totally get it. But here's the deal. When you scream, when you yell, when you say things like that, aren't true, really. Like, I don't love you. I'm ignoring you. I don't listen. That's not what's happening. I just see you're not reachable in that moment. You're just super mad and you should just work through your feelings. And the second you calm down, I'm here. And I'm even here when you're mad or upset. But I'm going to be here in a very quiet, calm way because both of us getting mad doesn't help, right? Both of us being angry and upset isn't going to help. And I just want you to know I get it. The more you can do that, I promise you, they will start to shift. It's because what you're looking at, and this is why I work with families for 12 weeks, because it takes time. But what you're focusing on, because it's so overwhelming, is that very first time you set the boundary. And by the way, that is the hardest. They are going to struggle the most. You're going to struggle, right? Because it's new, it's different. And they're going to fight harder because they're going to be like, what's happening? Why are they changing? What are they doing? This is what they do. What's happening? I'm more mad now, right? And so we have to work through that. That's a process. We have to practice that. We have to get better at that. And it takes time. It takes grace. It takes me in your corner saying, don't worry, you got this. It takes me maybe giving you scripts of how to connect with them when you're outside of that moment. But once you can stay calm and just recognize that my only job is to set and hold the boundary and stay regulated myself, it just becomes a lot easier. It simplifies the whole process. Don't take the bait. So with that, I'm going to walk through, I have a list here of some of the things that I sort of say most frequently to my one-on-one clients. And so I just thought it would be helpful to make a little list here of what it is that sort of comes up and how I would kind of walk them through it. Again, keep in mind, these are just general, right? Everything has context and you know your child best. So think about where and how some of these might apply. So one of the first things I see is typically with tweens and teens, and this also happens with younger children, we just talk too much. We are just over explaining and using verbal prompts to get our kids to listen, and it's ineffective. And lectures in particular are the most ineffective. I wish they worked, right? But like, think of yourself. How often did your parents lecturing you work? They don't land. We usually resist it. It's more about us than it is about our kids. Like I said, I wish they worked, but they just don't. So recognize your own patterning. What do you do when you find they're not listening? Do you start to explain why you're setting the boundary you're setting, right? So let's take an example. Let's say, like, some kids, it'll be bedtime, right? And they're independent now. They're a little older. So your hope is that they're getting through this routine independently. So you're kind of letting them manage their time, but you're like, man, it doesn't look very good from my angle over here. Like, they're not doing anything. They're not using their time very sensibly. I can see they're on their phone. They're not brushing their teeth. They're staying up later. So now we want to get involved, right? Because this is who we are as parents. And I would tell you probably try not getting involved, but let's just say we get involved. And then it's like, hey, are you getting ready for bed? And they're like, I will. And you're like, you know what? I'm not seeing you do what you need to be doing. You're always on your phone. You need to brush your teeth. You're not getting enough sleep. And we lay it in. Like, we get in there. We start to lay it on thick and tell them all the reasons why something or whatever they're doing isn't working and why we have the expectation we have. And then what do? And you know this. You probably don't even need me to answer this, but then they fight back with you, right? Because they see you're escalating. They are feeling controlled. So instead, and I just had this conversation with a parent, consider the thing that is distracting them from the routine, right? So in this case, if it's the phone, all you have to do is just say, hey, I've noticed that when you're getting ready for bed, that phone kind of gets in the way. So I get it. I'm the same way. I'm the worst with it. I know I shouldn't be looking at it before bed, but I always scroll and I know it's not good. So I'm working on it with you. I get it, right? Let's be on their team for a second and not come up from this sort of self-righteous place. And then I want you to just say, so here's the deal. I'm going to take the phone while you get ready. And I bet you can get ready in like 20 minutes. But I'm just going to hold on to it. Okay? That's how we're going to do it. Let them get mad. I have so many parents who are like, they'll get mad. That's fine. That's fine. They still love you. And the more you can just honor the fact that like they're allowed to feel however they want, but I'm still going to set the boundaries I need to set, it will be so much easier because now you are doing something. You are not only talking. So now you take the phone, they're unhappy the first few times you do it, you're calm, you're not over there trying to correct their feelings, you're not engaging in the arguments. And then little by little, guess what starts to happen? They hand you the phone or they say, you know what, I don't want my phone when I get ready for bed because it's so much easier when I can just do it in 15 minutes. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like we can't constantly talk and explain, did you eat? Did you do this? We're very good like micromanagers of our kids. And the truth is sometimes, especially with tweens and teens, the hardest task is like that letting go, that pulling back. So that brings me to my next thing, which is sometimes we just have to let natural consequences happen. So recently I was working with a family and the morning routine was, it felt like the mom was sort of the manager, right? Like, get here, you do this, you haven't done that yet, grab your backpacks. I mean, it was like a well-oiled machine, but there was a lot of power struggle and fighting and no, and I don't want to, and why, and this and that. And so with that, they were always kind of, we know as parents, when you are in a time pressured situation, you are more likely to lose your cool, you're more likely to get stressed and yell, and we don't like that, right? So I said to this parent, are they bothered if they're late? And she said, oh my gosh, yes, she would be so upset if she was late. And I said, can you manage if she's late? Meaning, like, does that throw your work day off or are you okay? And she said, no, I'm fine, actually. Like, it won't do anything to me. And I said, then you need to let her be late. Let her have the morning and let her do the routine the way she wants to do it and let her have the experience. You're going to give her the information up front. She already knows, right? She already knows she's not doing it the way she's supposed to do it. She already knows she's wasting time. Like, we don't have to convince our kids they're wrong. We spend a lot of time convincing our kids they're wrong and we're right, and it's just another ineffective strategy. We don't have to do that. All our job is to give them the experiences that are conducive to the developmental skills that they're trying to gain while staying regulated and calm. And it's hard. I'm not going to even say it's easy, but that's our job. It's not to take away experiences from them. It's not to prevent them from failing. It's not to prevent them from feeling pain or going through something hard. That's not our job. Our job is to help them gain the skills that they need so they can be the greatest, best version of themselves along in their own path and as they grow. And so they were late. She was so unhappy, right? And this parent felt bad, and she was never late again. Their mornings never, one morning, literally one morning is what it took. So often we are perceiving such bad outcomes that we are too scared to try for some of those natural consequences, but they're very effective, especially if your child is motivated by something like being on time. They don't want to be late to school. They don't like that feeling. But again, we can't take it away from them. We have to kind of let them see real cause and effect. So in that instance, that worked. That might not be the thing I recommend to everybody, though. I really want to be clear. I've worked with families where that's not an option, so we came up with a totally different plan. So again, you just want to think about in your own home setting, like in the context that you're in, what would work the best? What would be the thing that would help? In some cases, we might gamify getting ready. We might bring more motivation into the fold. We might lessen demands. I might tell you like, hey, it looks like your morning's got a lot of to-dos. Why don't we just make 3 major ones in there and support the rest, and then little by little lean into like giving a little more over as your kids do better. With another family I worked with, like she just realized that if they had any kind of a device or an electronic, they completely got off track. So we eliminated them in the mornings altogether, and then they got access to them after school. That was really effective for some kids. They like having that in the morning. It's a nice way to slowly wake up. Maybe they do it at the end of their morning routine. So it's different for everybody. But again, back to what I was saying, nothing changes until you change something you're doing. Our kids don't just change out of nowhere. They're responding to the patterns that we've created. So the next thing that comes up a lot is connecting with our kids on things that they love that might seem annoying to us, right? Like everything changes when they're tweens and teens. Their sense of humor is a little bit different. Their interests are different. And a lot of times parents will treat these things as weird or annoying or, something along, or like, what, that's so odd that they love this thing, And I did this with my kids a lot when what I'm about to describe is I made sure to love whatever they loved. And so for instance, like video games is an example. I'm not a gamer at all. My kids are not really into video games. My son is to some extent. When he was younger, he was. And instead of being like, I cannot believe you're playing on your, PS3 and you're doing this and you're doing that and that's enough time, and we kind of look at it as the enemy, I like embraced it. And I was like, oh my gosh, what game are we playing? Are we playing FIFA? This is awesome. Which team are you? What are your stats? Like, I cheered it on, because when we make something the bad thing, then our kids, sometimes that like curious part of them is like, well, I want to play it. I want to do it. I don't care that it's bad. And when we suddenly just demystify it, like, oh my gosh, I love playing FIFA with you. And maybe I wasn't playing with him. Maybe it was just me asking questions when everything was said and done. They become so much more at ease when you set these boundaries. So it looks something like this. I would maybe go into my son's room and go, hey, love that you're playing FIFA. I know it's awesome. This has to be the last game. Can I trust you to turn it off when it's done? Because if I come in 15 minutes and you've started a new game, I don't care if it's the championship, I'm just turning it off. Okay? So you let me know. Or do we have a deal? You can turn that off before the next game starts. That's the deal. Otherwise, I come in and I turn it off. But I think you got this. So in all of that, I'm team kid. I love the games. I think they're awesome. I'm never kind of talking about how video games make your brain mush and all the statistics around why it's bad, whatever. All I'm saying is like, hey, here's the boundary. I trust, and I'm building trust there too, because I'm like, because that's what they always say. Wait, my game's not done. So I was like, okay, well, here's the deal. Can I trust you to complete this game and not start a new one? That was the challenge. And it gives you an action. So let's say he didn't do it, then I just went in and turned off the next game. And then he realized, oh gosh, that is really what's going to happen. So that the next time I said to him, hey, I think I can trust you to end the game when it's done and not start a new one. And he'd go, yeah, for sure. Right? So these are the things we need to do that balance the way that we're setting some of those boundaries. So the other thing that I tell parents to think about is, honestly, don't take everything personal. And this is so hard because we love them so much and we wish they just knew that all of what we're doing is coming from this place of love. But we take things really personally and we take them to heart when they don't want to do the activity we suggest. We go out to dinner as a family and they're just moping because they're annoyed that they had to miss something that they really wanted to do. We want to desperately give them lectures about being grateful and you're being a brat and you're spoiled and like all the things that we say in our heads. And it's not really about us. They are gaining perspective in life and they can only do that through experiences. And so, yes, I'm not saying you can't have conversations with them and you can't say to them, you know what, buddy, like I was really looking forward to that dinner. And just like I cheer you on when you do the things that you want, it didn't feel great to look across the table and just see you moping. And I bet next time when we say you can't go to your friends because we have a family thing, I bet you'll figure out how to make sure to balance those two things because we can be sad about one thing while also being happy that something else is happening. So I need you to think about that the next time we grab dinner. Okay? You got this. We want to be team kid. They're still learning, right? They're still getting it. So those are the main tips that I guess I can leave you guys with. If you have questions, you guys email me at albiona@theparentingreframe.com. Or if you're like, so much of what she's saying really resonates with exactly what's happening in our house and you're ready to make those shifts. I kind of walk families through one small shift at a time. We don't do a full overhaul because it's impossible and that's not really a healthy way to lean into sustainable change. Think about booking a discovery call. I'm taking clients. I'm starting to build out my list for 2026. So make sure to grab a spot on my discovery call schedule. Let's chat. I can guide you through what it would look like, how I can support you. And I want to hear about your kids. I want to hear about what's going on because so often, and I learned this the other day, or my instructor in yoga said this the other day, and I thought it was so poignant. She said, often it's the simple adjustments that help us get back into balance. And it's so true. Like I can look at a family's dynamic and honestly, sometimes it doesn't take too long to start seeing, like to just get your head above water. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is working. And you're like, oh, good. Can we tackle this next? Yes, let's tackle that next. And then we keep going and we keep connecting. And it's like, I jokingly say with all my clients on that first call, it feels like everybody's shoulders are a little tight and that we're all just a little bit like anxious and afraid and hoping and praying that this works. And then by like the third or fourth call, when I watch them, they're a little more relaxed. They're laughing on the call. We're telling jokes. They're a little more at ease. By the 6th, 7th, and 8th week, things are really taking shape. They're starting to place different demands. They have a lot more confidence in the way they're explaining things and the way they're setting their boundaries and moving forward. There's more connection in the home. And by the time we get to that 12-week mark, they're like, so settled and anchored. And there's just so much, like if you just looked at the body posturing, it's like everyone's just settled and calm and shoulders have dropped and the facial muscles are soft and everybody's smiling. And it's for me, it is like one of the most rewarding things as somebody who gets to walk alongside you on this journey of like getting you to that place. Because ultimately, like I just say it all the time, it's the one journey, right? Like being a parent and that sort of relationship with your kids is really what can teach you so much about yourself if we allow it to. And, there's a lot obviously with the reparenting piece of it, but again, if this resonates, I'll throw a link in the show notes, you guys. Book a free call. Let's figure out if 2026 should start off with some clarity and some calm and just some tools to help you navigate what probably feels like challenging moments. But you've got this. Thanks again for being here, everyone. Until next time.